Spreading the good news.
How's my bud?
Spreading the good news.
Yeah.
Fred. How are you? Nobody else on the mic or not?
Oh, I don't get.
You do. Give that to Larry. Right over to Larry? No, I had too much. What's going on? Does he have one of these over there? Yes. Hey, Larry. There, Will. Hey, Mike. It's already on.
Okay.
It's got a it's not
Before we get started tonight, really make sure that your cell phones are silenced.
This is the wrong color. Better not be. Vodka to clean paint.
Hello and welcome to the 26-27 annual budget meeting. And to start this off tonight, I'd like to ask Larry Vazdin to start with the convocation.
Should we stand?
Yeah.
Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings you give us. We ask you, Lord, that you would be with this meeting tonight and just bless that you would give us wisdom to make decisions and do the things that you would have us do. We do this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And if you remain standing, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to begin with tonight, I'd like to have our community manager come up, Jennifer Gonitis.
I'd like being in the center. If you will.
Good evening. When I arrived here in 2017, I was quickly introduced to two residents who it became immediately clear were deeply woven into the fabric of Fairfield Harbor. Over time, I came to understand just how invaluable they have been, not only to this community, but to the board of directors, countless committees, our staff in the POA office, and personally to me. Gloria's impact on this community has been defined by leadership and service when it mattered most. She served on the board of directors in multiple capacities for more than a decade, helped guide the community through significant change, and was instrumental during moments of crisis, from coordinating Red Cross support after Hurricane Florence to helping lead Fairfield Harbor through the challenges of the COVID pandemic. She also played a hands-on role in major infrastructure moments, including the demolition of the old Shoreline Clubhouse, and then the construction of the boat launch. Many people don't know that the Shoreline Clubhouse used to be right here where we are many years ago. Pretty cool. Gloria is a researcher, a teacher, a perfectionist. She never forgets what she has written, and she can always recall when things have transpired. Gloria's dedication to being the secretary for the board is unmatched throughout the history of the community. She has even had a 3-month stint this year to help the board through a time where we didn't have a secretary. No doubt that Gloria's PhD in psychology always helped to figure out the best approach to each obstacle faced by the community, and her experience in her former work life offered a no-nonsense but still soft approach. You always want her on your side. She is an ace. In capital letters. Al's impact on Fairfield Harbor cannot be measured by titles or positions. It's measured by continuity of presence and a lot of care. For nearly 20 years, Al has served as the historian and visual record keeper of Fairfield Harbor, preserving not just events, but the story of this community, who we were, how we changed, and why those moments mattered. Because of his work, future boards, residents, and families will be able to understand the journey of Fairfield Harbor, not just inherit the result. Al's service went far beyond documentation. He showed up day after day. He checked in with POA staff to take a break from his daily walk. He checked in with the maintenance team, the groundskeepers on the golf course, not because it was expected, but because he genuinely cared about the people who keep this community running. In doing so, he built trust, he strengthened morale, and reminded all of us what it means to be part of something larger than ourselves. His volunteerism was quiet, steady, and unwavering. Fairfield Harbor is stronger because of it. We especially love the stories about when he worked the night shift, managing the factory, and all of the processes that he implemented. He made comparisons to what we had to accomplish to help us. Gloria Hodgert and Al Afshauer represent the very best of Fairfield Harbor. They help readily when asked, and even when they're not asked. They tell the truth. They support progress. They appreciate good work, and they never seek credit. Above all, they are great neighbors. Please help me to honor Gloria and Al with your vote.
Oh, I see him sitting there.
Right here.
Okay, I'd like to start off by going over some of our projects that we've done this year for the roads and streets and what the budget monies were spent on. We did repairs to the main entrance, replaced the speed bumps on the main entrance. We have repaved 3 golf course holes and cart path. And we are in the process of doing 7 more golf course cart path holes. Those should be finished this year. There's been pothole repair throughout the community on Pelican, Caracara, Lanyard, Westwood, Royal Pines, Argentine, and Coral Reef. Next slide. We have a 3-year plan that we're set to do certain road repair. And what we have for the first year is we're taking some small projects. We're going to do Kia Court, Nautilus Court, Columbus Court, and Harbor Point Drive, and pave those. We're also going to have a gravel trailer parking out here right by the boat launch area. In 2027, we plan on doing paving on Gondolier, Trade Winds, Boku Reef, and Plymouth Court. Now, we have to make sure that CWS comes out here before we start this work, and that they have gone through their infrastructure to make sure that it's in good condition before we pave over it. What we don't want to have them do is us pave and then them come in and tear it up. So we're trying to work with them right now to make sure that this infrastructure for these roads are in good shape. Next slide. For 2028, we're looking at paving Coral Reef Court. And just so all of you know, we have a 10-year plan that we're looking at. Reviews all the streets and roads. We have, there's 23 miles of roads in Fairfield Harbor. We have an engineering company, SEPI, that came in and took a look at all the roads and made suggestions. We've also gone along with the Roads and Streets Committee and looked at all the roads and streets and see which is in more critical need of repair. For stormwater, we're gonna spend a lot of effort on stormwater in the community. We have just reviewed or sent in our renewal notice for the Gondola Peninsula stormwater area. We have to keep this up to date. We're responsible for maintaining the weirs and the runoff from there, making sure that it's all maintained under the DEQ. We're also looking at replacing culverts on the golf course. We replaced one this year that ran across the golf course of hole 18. And we're looking at doing, I think, 3 or 4 more across the golf course in the next year or two. We're also looking at, we did a culvert on Tradewoods in San Juan, which there was a culvert there which collapsed in, had a big sinkhole, and we replaced that culvert. And we're also looking at swale remediation. This year we went through and we, if any of you are familiar with up on Cara, where it wraps around Petite Cara, we went through and did a remediation on those swales. So, and then also one of the projects we did this year was the Broad Creek Road drainage. That it now runs, if you're familiar, you're driving down Broad Creek, you used to always see the water that was up there by the trees. We've now contoured that area so it runs off into the pond. It used to run into the swale on Broad Creek, run under the road and flood the homes on Cara. So we're trying to remedy that. These are projects for the next 4 or 5 years. We have 28 miles of roadside swales that need remediation. We need to go through and make sure they're all cleaned out. We also have behind hole 18, there's a swale that is in desperate need of remediation. And we want to start phase 1 next year. Also have the swale and culvert remediation on Harbor Point Drive and Osprey Court. We're looking to replace 6 culverts right under the Gondola Peninsula. There again, we have to make sure that we do this before we do paving over there, so that we don't pave and then tear up the road. We're going to go in, get this done, work with CWS, make sure all their work is done, and then repave Gondola Peninsula. We have 4 other cross-country corrugated metal pipes that we need to replace, and we need to work on some of the drainage structures replacement around. One of the things we have is a 36-inch pipe that runs under Pelican and out to the harbor. We need to replace that, and if you're familiar with it, it's right here next to the Harbor Club. It's taped off, so you can't get near it because it's collapsing in. And we need to replace that. And where it enters the harbor, we need to rebuild the bulkhead around there for that. We have to do general swale remediation and culvert cleaning. You all may know that you have culverts out in front of your houses. If you have those, if you look at them, some of them are filled in. We need to get out there and make sure that those are cleaned out and that the water drains from here. Our storm drains around here are supposed to handle 2 inches of rain within a 48-hour period. So if we get more than that, it's going to back up somewhere. So one of the other major projects we have is along the north side of Cara, where it backs up to the Ganglands and the Royal Pines area on the north side. These swales need to be remediation on those and cleaned out. We haven't done this in 40 years, so if you go down and look at those swales, they have trees in them, and the water just doesn't flow out. So we need to make sure that we get this infrastructure up and running and, you know, can protect our homes. So that, Larry, I'd like to.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, that's TMI.
Well, my name's Larry Nathan, and really appreciate being able to be here tonight to talk to you about this. I promise you what I'm gonna have to say is take less than 10 minutes, so it's not gonna be too much. We'll get to the important stuff that Leah's got for us. What I wanted to talk to you about were some projects that we've completed in 2025 that I have been personally associated with. I've been liaison, and I talked with her last year about the RFID, and so two things that I want to talk about with that would be the gates and our electronic door controls. Next slide. Okay, this project actually was presented last February. We were doing the same thing, but now I can report to you, we've actually completed the first three gates: the main gate, the Shoreline Gate, the Harbor Point Gate, and the Barkentine Gate. And I'm happy to report that credentials that work are the windshield stickers, the cards, and the mobile app. So they're basically 100% done. Some interesting numbers that I can tell you is that we have issued, the POA office has issued over 3,700 windshield stickers, over 10,000 card credentials, and we have over 2,600 users listed and logged into our system. Okay. The next steps, as far as RFID is concerned, will be the Marina Drive area. You remember we didn't get to put that in, but we are looking at what we will be doing in it. And then also the construction gate option. So that's all to be, it's on the table and it's to be determined. Next slide. The second thing was the doors, the electronic door controls. And so at the Harbor Club here, we have 6 exterior doors that have electronic readers. The electronic reader is what you see in the center image. And then we have 2 interior doors that have readers on each side of the door. The purpose of all this is to be able to allow people to be able to come into the club without having to check out keys and then make sure to carry back keys. And the keys are inherently insecure. But this system works with the same RFID technology that our gates work with. So it's all integrated and works very well together. We're still waiting on parts to complete one side of the door, a couple of doors interior to get it completely finished, but then we'll be 100% of that. And we will be fully implemented. We'll have the ability to lock, unlock, and schedule locking on any door, as well as unlock the door with credentials and schedule that as well. Next slide. Okay, the next item I want to tell you about is cameras. We talked about it last year, and it was a little slow. It's been mostly done within the last 3 months or so. We discussed it last year and said it was going to be completed, and I'm happy to report it's 98% complete with over 60 cameras implemented right now. The left image you see is the golf club and the point. Now these are just representative images of what it looks like when you're in the software that maybe the guards will look at, where you're seeing multiple camera angles at one time. The center image is the Harbor Club, the right image are for gates. Now on the gates, we have not only observational cameras, but we have license plate recognition cameras as well that work in conjunction with our security system. To get 100%, we're going to be adding 5 more cameras. 2 will be in the Harbor Club, 1 more for the boat ramp, 1 for Shoreline Marina, and 1 for the amphitheater. They were just pulled out to save money, and we were trying to get those back in program. But this was all designed to better protect all of our assets and enhance security. And if you do have questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer anything I can about any of this. Next slide. Okay, the next one I'm pretty excited about. Anybody remember the Beacon? The friendly Beacon. Okay, piece of newspaper. It was wonderful. From what I hear, I wasn't here. Let's see. You can pass some of these around. I'm gonna give you an example. What we're going to show you is an example of what we're going to be doing. We are going to have a printed edition of the Beacon We're looking at putting it out in March. It will be a bi-monthly. It will be the March, April edition when it comes out. And I'd like to tell you, and I appreciate that Bob and Chris really have volunteered to be the editors for this. And I think it's going to be wonderful. So, thanks to them. And after we put it out, this first issue is going to cost us little to nothing. We're going to put it out, and then we're going to do a survey to see how many people want to continue this. We'll put out in a survey what the cost is. That will be to the POA, not be to you personally, but we'll let you know, and then you can let us know whether you want to continue this. We think it's going to be a great asset to the community. We've had much feedback stating that they want the printed stuff to come back. That not everybody likes online to get all their information. Some people just like to hold it in their hand. So that's what we're trying to do. So I'm really excited about that. Next slide. Last thing I want to tell you about is something new that I came up with because I saw a need. And that's when we work best, is when we see a need and try to fill it. But I had an idea that we needed a group like this, a group that could really work on technology issues. I consulted with other board members, and we created a charter for consideration of the board, and then the board approved that charter. It was announced in the Friday update. We requested anybody interested in this type of committee to send in an application. We took our applications, I presented them to the board with our recommendations. The board approved the membership. Now the members have been announced, and we will be having our first meeting in February. So again, if you have any ideas that you think that could use technology to better benefit the way we operate Fairfield, please let any of the board members know, or let me know, or let any member that will be on this committee know. And with that, I'm going to turn back over to you.
Now I'd like to bring up Mike Foster, let him talk to you about the Harbor Club.
Good job, Larry.
Short report.
I do short reports.
Thank you all for being here this evening. It's nice to have a space in Fairfield Harbor where we can assemble as a group of residents, accommodate this many members in person. Also, thanks to those viewing this meeting on YouTube. I know it's being recorded and will be available later. Thank you for that. Sometime as construction was beginning to see an end here and turn over this building from WIMCO to the POA was taking shape, the idea of a post-construction Harbor Club committee was obvious. The BOD asked for volunteers, received applications, reviewed them, and did interviews in person. This is a list of the folks that are serving. Thank them for their service. It has always amazed me, as I've lived here since 2000, how much talent lives inside Fairfield Harbor. This group of people have an amazing amount of talent. In hospitality, it was difficult choosing who was going to be on this committee. And then surprisingly behind that, we also found out that Kathleen and Jennifer have a great deal of the same skills. So it was a great working group. Once formed, the HCUC, in conjunction with the POA staff, moved quickly to put together a list of operating needs for a Harbor Club, from suggested guidelines on usage, needed form updates, to brand new written standard operating procedures of so many things. Some of that work will continue. Thank you to the HCUC for their efforts so far. Probably should be more. As you can see, the building is complete. Many of you have already been here for activities. Some groups remain operating in either the community center or the activity building, as those locations fit those individual groups' needs. The staff is still deeply involved in making adjustments to this location. There are so many moving parts involved with a transfer and the operation of Fairfield Harbor. And even those same duties that they previously performed have to be assimilated to this location. Not always a simple and easy task. Our gratitude to them for their efforts and hard work. And a big thank you to the community for understanding as the adjustments are made. Comments from the community have been encouraging. The Harbor Club is becoming a center of activity and focus for our wonderful community. And we can hardly imagine what this coming spring will be like as residents take full advantage of the outdoor locations and facilities and offerings here at the Harbor Club. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Wayne Johnson from Reserve Associates.
Association Reserve.
Association. I get it backwards every time.
No problem. And I'd just like to start by saying thank you guys for hiring our company to perform your reserve study and for coming out on this cold night to hear this. But a couple of things real quick that I really thought was pretty fantastic is you guys recognizing those volunteers early on, because this is a thankless job. We deal with so many boards and they really work hard and they deserve every kind of award you can give them. So that was cool. Before I started in this industry, I had over 20 years working at a newspaper. I was the advertising and marketing director, so it's good to hear the newspapers are coming back. I didn't think that was gonna happen. And this building is awesome. We didn't include that in this year's study, so I'm looking forward to getting to come back and include this in the next one. So anyway, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the Fairfield Harbor Reserve Study that was formed late summer. And this is the second reserve study that we have done for Fairfield Harbor. The first one was back in 21. The update reflects new information, the observed conditions on my site inspection, and the continued aging of infrastructure. So some of the expectations are that the findings are challenging in the report, but are not unexpected for a community this age. Keep in mind that the reserve study does not create the problems. It just helps the association understand and plan for. My goal tonight is a high-level overview, not a deep technical review of every component that's in the study, because it is a large study with all the components that this community has. So the big picture on what a reserve study does, a reserve study answers three fundamental questions. What are the common area components is the association responsible for? What condition are those components in? And when will they need major repair or replacement? And then are the current contributions sufficient to pay for those costs when they do occur? So one thing I'd like to clarify though, a reserve study is a planning tool. It's not an alarm bell. It provides foresight so that boards and homeowners can avoid emergency decisions. So here are some of the high-level findings that our study revealed. The overall takeaway, and one of the board members told me when we had a meeting before exactly what to say, and I'm not going to say it in his words, but the overall takeaway is that the current reserve funding levels are not sufficient to meet future expenses. This is the most important thing I'll say tonight. The current reserve funding levels are not sufficient to meet your future projected expenses. So one of the primary cost drivers, which we've already heard about a little bit, was is the stormwater infrastructure. This is the single most significant issue affecting the Fairfield Harbor stormwater, is the stormwater drainage infrastructure. Preliminary projections are projecting stormwater related costs will be approximately $5 million over the next 5 years. So you're probably wondering, why is this occurring? But I think we touched on that a little bit already too, that Fairfield Harbor was developed in the 70s. So that makes this community and the stormwater system over 50 years old. Stormwater infrastructure is largely underground, which means the problems are often remain unseen until the failure occurs. So repairs tend to be costly and urgent once the problem does surface. These challenges are common in older communities like this, and we see a lot of them in North Carolina that are about the same age that are going through this. So you guys aren't alone. In fact, I'm doing another job here in New Bern, and they have a real similar problem. So it's localized and all over the state. Some of the constraints that this association faces, though, are that your governing documents limit what the board and the association can do to pay for these. You guys can't have a special assessment. So that means that their only other recourse, I guess, is to just have your regular assessments or dues go up. You have to do more long-term financial planning to get ahead of this stuff and to try to plan right. You have to phase and do projects and execution when possible. So this makes being proactive, like using a reserve study and just better planning, makes that even more important. But you've got a lot of important positives and strengths for Fairfield Harbor. I don't want to be all doom and gloom. You have a large homeowner base. The community has over 2,800 homeowners. So this allows the capital costs to be spread out across many owners. While the total costs are significant, the per household impact is far more manageable than in smaller communities. For example, that $5 million that I mentioned for the infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure, if you spread that out over the 2,800 homes, you're only looking at $1,800 roughly per house. So when you break it down like that, it's not as bad. You also have a very talented and engaged board and volunteers that helped out with a lot of the information that I received for the reserve study. Board members are already actively addressing the complex issues, particularly the stormwater challenges. And by having these knowledgeable board members, it's going to improve your decision quality. It's going to help with communication to homeowners so you guys are in the loop and know what's going on. And it helps with long-term outcomes for the community. And the good news that the board is being proactive in their efforts is that we're not ignoring these issues. They're working on these things. The stormwater concerns are already being studied and addressed, as you can see from the slides that were presented earlier. And our reserve study supports and complements the board's ongoing work. So what else needs to happen now to right this ship? I think first we just have to acknowledge the reality early. Aging infrastructure will not improve on its own. Early planning preserves options and reduces the long-term cost in the end. And then last but not least, Mother Nature and Father Time are undefeated. The docks, the buildings, the roads, the stormwater infrastructure are all deteriorating every day. So the best thing an association can do is have a plan for that. And that includes the reserve study that I did and to help with future capital repairs and replacements and to have a plan in place. Gradual and planned funding adjustments, like I said before, you're going to need to have incremental assessment increases, and they'll be less disruptive, and they won't be done in an emergency situation if you just have a planned increase annually. Predictability will help homeowners, as you can plan for that, and reduce some frustration. Definitely have to prioritize those stormwater projects. That's not even an option. If those failures happen, they impact the roads, they impact the homes, the property values, and even safety. So these projects should be treated as infrastructure preservation and not a discretionary type spending. So use the reserve study. The study should give you a guide for annual budgeting decisions. Regular updates to this will allow you to adjust conditions and costs and the priorities as they change. And remember, these challenges develop over decades, at least 5. and they can't be just fixed overnight. So planning spreads out the cost over time and across many of the owners. Doing nothing will typically increase your cost and risk in the long run. I'm going to be here to the end and answer any questions then. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll be back for questions. Thank you.
I got it.
I've already scolded Mike Foster. I'm in charge of short reports, okay? Everybody got that? It ain't gonna be. Wayne, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm gonna cheat and ask the first question though. How much was it you said we needed to have in the bucket?
We're rounding off at $10 million.
Okay. So when we get in a situation like this, what are we gonna do? You gotta start with the stuff that needs to be done right now, and you gotta start with reserving going forward. And I'm gonna talk about both of those. But before I start, let me thank some folks. I'd like to thank Dave Farmeyer. He's an assistant treasurer. He's been a big help in pulling all this together. I want to thank Dan Zimmer, Troon VP of Operations. I want to thank Tom Banwar, Senior Corporate Director of Food and Beverage, and all the Troon team that's boots on the ground here every day. We appreciate all of you. We wouldn't have got it done without you, and this truly takes a village to put one of these together. So where are we? Where are we going? We're at a turning point. I hope we do the turnaround. To do it right, we must do it together. We need a lot of participation from a lot of people. But we're turning from worrying about Harbor Club to using Harbor Club and celebrating it. Oh, we're going to pay for it too. But we're making that turn. We're turning toward repairing and rebuilding our community's infrastructure and building resiliency for surviving a natural disaster. We're turning from a relatively obscure process, I hope, to a relatively transparent process. And making things we're doing more understandable from a budget point of view is my job, and I take it seriously. We're turning from a budget that's constructed on P&L statements and balance sheets to a much more simple cash in, cash out approach. Is it legit accounting? It's not real accounting at all. It's a bucket. You measure what you put in, you measure what you took out. But really, that's what you need for a budget. We'll talk about it as we go. I call it sources and uses of funds, and I'm going to show it to you as we get further along. But most importantly to me, budgets are about people, they're about words, they're about plans, and the numbers that result from those plans, not the other way around. We'll still publish a P&L statement every month, but that's a result, not a plan. You don't need to budget things like depreciation, amortization, or EBITDA, and that's probably the last time you'll hear me talk about it in a budget presentation. Those are constructs for the Internal Revenue Service. Words, plans, sources and uses of funds works just fine for budgeting, and it's easier for all of us to talk about and understand. Now, throughout this presentation, I'm going to talk about small changes. But some of them, when you think about them, are going to be big changes. Taken all together, they represent a turning point. So buckle up, let's get to work. So what's in this budget? Under our contract with Troon is responsible for presenting an operating budget to the board for approval. Dan Zimmer and his team have put together an incredible amount of detail
to show how many parts of the operating budget were pretty routine. But some were big deals. And we'll talk about the big deals. For the first time, we have Harbor Club to budget and operate. Dan and his team are going to present a separate P&L for Harbor Club as we go through the year. We'll publish it monthly. We'll be showing you just how good or how bad our initial estimates were. Let me say right here, Mr. Rothengatz, your estimate's right. He's been saying a long time that we budgeted enough to have it and operate it, and we do. You'll see it here. But those $300 a year dues increases have already been added to your uniform charge. We'll pay for Harbor Club. We should not be coming back to you for additional assessments for Harbor Club. Those $300 assessments are going to stay, and I'll show you where they go. But we'll believe they will pay the bill. We also have the golf and restaurant operations been wandering around for some while. Been getting a little bit better. Little improvement. When Amanda joined us, that improvement improved. The trajectory changed, and we appreciate that. So when the first trim draft was presented to the board, we requested two big changes from it. First, we asked that all changes related to the Harbor Club be put into the Harbor Club P&L. We want everything to be right out there in plain sight where everybody can see it. Second, we challenged Troon to reach into their very substantial, and how many golf courses do you guys operate with restaurants? 6,427? It just seems like that. It's literally a couple hundred for Indigo, which is a subsidiary, and a couple of thousand for Trim. These guys do a lot of this work. We pay them for their expertise. We want them to use it. We challenge to reach into that management expertise and show us what it will take to get the whole operation to net profit by 2029. Why'd I pick 2029? Because that's when their contract comes due for renewal. Please note, I did not say be profitable, because there may be actions needed from the board that we decline to do or simply can't afford. They haven't showed us any yet. It could happen. So when we gave it back to Dan, Tom Van Wert was on the ground in a couple days. He was visiting again, not just for the first time. Help with restructuring that part of the budget. It got restructured. It's a whole lot less burdensome for the community. Golf and food and beverage budgets were restructured to build from the trajectory we've established the second half of this year. Did they show a profit next year? No, I told you they won't. Okay? But the direction has changed and changed measurably. Remember I said by 2029. Challenge continues, and it's going to go on, but the revised budget showed a significant improvement. As far as I can tell, we haven't given Troon any real clear profit guidance on what they wanted, on what the board wanted. They've got it now. Have they showed us any steps we won't take or can't afford? No. Gentlemen, you're ahead of it. Don't read ahead. No, you're next. You're good. So we constructed a capital budget based on these priorities. We want to provide funding so this community can survive a Florence. I call it resiliency and recovery from a disaster. We've talked about stormwater. I'm going to talk about it a little more. Stormwater is not stormwater prevention. It's not really stormwater control. It might be stormwater management. Might be getting along with it a little bit. My view is it needs to get out of here once it gets in here. I come from a community in Florida that is literally on average a foot lower to sea level than this place. We drained out 48 hours after Ian. You say, well, that's Ian, okay, fine. Ian came in as a Cat 5, it ran right over my house. It brought 22 inches in about 4 hours rain. It was a nasty storm. We'll talk about storm. And repairing our roads and our streets and all of our other assets on a program we can afford. Starting last summer, I challenged myself to figure out how much we needed to promptly and effectively survive and recover from another Florence. Understand that what I'm going to talk about today is putting the money in place. We've still got planning to do and lots of it. But I'm trying to get funds in place so we don't get stuck there. The worst case damage situation, total property and casualty insurance deductible for everything in the community would be about $300,000. If you have a worst case storm and it tears everything up in here, tears it up bad, if you want it back, you pay the first $300,000. I'm going to draw on my experience in funding and helping to manage the recovery from Ian for a community similar in size to this, with a whole lot less trees. After Ian, I'm going to guess that we need another $500,000 to do a thorough recovery, thorough cleanup, thorough debris removal, and all the other stuff you cannot plan for what a hurricane brings to you. Lori mentioned to me that we paid upwards of $1.2 million. Did I get that right after Florence? Yeah.
Deductible was 500.
There you go. So we beat the deductible down.
If you're so.
Good. Last summer, I challenged the Stormwater Committee to budget and to prioritize how to repair our drainage system so that if we get another Florence, it drains out enough for emergency vehicles to be in here in 24 to 48 hours. You heard 2 inches of rain in 4 hours. Well, Florence wasn't 2 inches of rain in 4 hours. You cannot prevent flooding if you live this close to sea level, but you can manage it. You can't control it, but you have to manage it. By those targets, because that's what it takes to keep us all safe, well, and taken care of when we take another hit. Can we do this project in a year? Get that money together? No. It's a work in progress, but we're working on a defined goal. I challenge roads and streets to budget and plan how to pave at least a mile, preferably 1.5 miles, of new road every year, starting with the worst ones. Where'd 1.5 miles come from? We got about 33 miles of roads in here. If you drive down the best mile of road in here and try to imagine what it's going to be like in 20 years, you better be ready to do that best mile in 20 years. So today you got to start with the worst one and drive it down. How do you do that? We've already mentioned you got to have CWS do some work. We have to do some work. I'm going to show you how we structure it. I asked all the committees that would respond with their capital needs to provide them to. And all of that stuff came together in the capital budget you see here. And we're going to share it in detail, a little bit of detail. Will it work perfectly? No. It won't. We're going to have to tune and tweak as we go. We need to be big boys and big girls and adjust and move along. But it's a start, it's a plan, and it's a way to go. The only part of this plan that is actually approved by the board for implementation is the 2026 piece of it. We're going to have to do the 2027 piece of it next year. But I show out years so you can see the structure of some things. In particular, that we want to show how to do the stormwater work on a street before it gets paved. Okay, so don't you just take big spreadsheets with a million numbers on them?
I do. So let's do the pieces. Jennifer? Stormwater, please. Thank you. Again, these are the big pieces. We've already talked about this, but I'm going to say it again. Most of our drains, culverts, swales, all need either repair or replacement. Culverts are pipes under our road that let water go past the road without making the road a dam. Original culverts in here are mostly galvanized steel. How many of you are boaters? Just raise your hand. Is salt water on steel a good thing? Okay. Those might last maybe 20 years in a good time, more likely 15. They've been in there a long time and they're getting like this. We have salt in our groundwater. This is one we dug out of the road this year. Now the problem is both leakage and structure, as we mentioned. It drizzles out and the road collapses. Aside from that, nothing bad happens. But the second photo shows you kind of the dance we have to do when we go in to replace these things. Because if you look closely, there are cables and other people's pipes that we have to thread that culvert in under. But with all that said, it makes a lot of sense to replace these before we pave the road, not after. Swale slide? Good. Who knows what a swale is? This is a swale. If you think about it as a drainage ditch, that's what it is. That's what it does. Ray will get mad at me, but it's a drainage ditch. Right, Ray? So some of what we needed, and I emphasize this, some of what we need, were graded in by the developers. Over years, people have run stuff over the edges of the berms, down the middle of them, dumped dirt in them, dumped gravel in them, put in culverts that slope the wrong way. How many more ugly things can you do with a simple drainage ditch? But we've done them all. We let them grow up in vegetation. We got vegetation major to clean out. So tomorrow morning, if you don't know what I'm talking about, out and drive across your driveway and look at the culvert in front of your yard. Look at the swale in front of your yard. Does the swale look like that? I don't think so. Does the culvert slope downhill toward the exit? Probably not. They all need work. If I stand on the manhole out by Pelican, I'm 4 feet above sea level. The water's got a long way to go. It's got to have an easy path to take. The floor I'm standing on right here is about 14 feet above sea level. That 10 feet is a really nice refuge after a storm. But you got to get to it. If the water between there and here can be 10 feet deep, might be a problem. All has to work together. So, give me nothing in my backyard, Jennifer. This is what it looked like after Florence, for those of you that weren't here. Some first responders coming in. My accounts from those folks that were here, it took about twice as long as we wanted to drain out. That's a delay on getting emergency vehicles in here. That's a delay on getting a drywall contractor in here. That's a delay on getting a handyman in here if you need that. We don't want that. People that stay here and survive staying here, we want to come out healthy at the other end. Give me streets and paving, please. Everybody sees our roads, everybody drives on our roads, everybody has an opinion. We've talked about it. We've neglected maintenance and repairs in this area. We need to catch up. Only a couple small projects next year. Striving to get both Harbor Point and Gondolier inspected. And to get CWS to complete the repairs that the inspections indicate. Then we would like to pave. Doesn't make much sense. Pave a nice new road and then cut through it to replace the culverts. Security, please. Yes, ma'am. pieces are cameras, as Larry discussed, and they have asked the budget to add speed camera. We're holding the funding amount on the chart, so we can plan to be ready if we need to. Buildings. When you buy a new house from a developer, you gotta make a run to Home Depot. Excuse me, you need to make 10 runs to Home Depot in the first week. No bad news on the guys that helped our community build this. We appreciate that effort very much. But the Home Depot stuff needs to be done now, and it's big Home Depot stuff. We need to do some parking lot lights. We need to do some boat parking. We probably want to think about planning a generator. I've added $160,000 in there for that total. We're showing $100,000 a year for golf renovations, major repairs, sprinkler systems, etc. I don't have the details of that yet, but the details will have to be presented to the board. But this is what we're budgeting. Now, Jennifer, contribution, thank you. Again, this deserves a much higher priority than we've given it. And here's how we plan to stage the contributions from you via an emergency assessment initially, combined with proceeds from general dues revenues. This covers insurance deductibles for the worst case storm, debris cleanup, emergency supplies, and anything else a disaster might throw at us, done in about 6 years. But we have to do a soft start, a slow start. And there are two really good reasons here. Reason one is the community is going to reject the shock of the size of contribution we need to do to get this on course right away. And the other is, quite honestly, we're not prepared to manage that big and that many projects the first year. We need to practice doing some projects and get them going. And once we start to roll, I think we can really roll. Statement of reserve. Somebody, one of my sharper-eyed readers, called me up and says, "Lee, you didn't put a statement of reserve balances in here." I said, you're right. I still don't have it. I'm missing the year-end balance right now. Missing it for two reasons. One of them is I'm missing the current balance, and the other is I'm not sure how much I'm going to contribute to reserves before the year ends. I know what we budgeted, and I've avoided making contributions to reserves so far because I've been worried about our cash situation. I think we're going to be okay on cash, so I'm going to start making contributions. I will publish this data in a future Your Money Matters newsletter. You can count on that. But in the meanwhile, I'll just let you know that we're adding $137,000 to our general reserve earmarked for storm, and we're not spending anything out of it. How are we doing that? We're going to handle these big projects on the P&L. I think Wayne will agree with this. I haven't asked him. Put him on the spot. But since we know what they're going to cost, and we're going to do them in the first year, there's really no reason to put that money in a bucket and then draw out of the bucket. He's nodding his head up and down for all you guys who can't see. I feel a whole lot better. But the projects we've identified for this year, and we're going to fund this year, going to fund out of this year's receipts, just run them as a P&L item. Provides you a lot better clarity and a lot better tracking, a lot better accountability. So, Dan Zimmer's going to present our operating budget. As I said, he's consolidated all the operating summary. He will talk about golf and restaurant and everything else. No challenge there, Dan. I want to hear that everything else part. But first, let's see how operating and capital budgets fit together. and look at it in sources and uses of funds. Total funds available to us. I got to look, no, back up. There you go. Total funds available, $5,734,276. Uniform dues collected, $3,924,733. Golf and restaurant receipts, $1,504,000. That's the second biggest piece. Non-dues revenue, third biggest piece of the pie. Marina, etc., $398,000. And what we're asking for is a contribution to the emergency fund will be $137,858 this year. Next one, please. How are we going to spend it? You spend the most money by a pretty significant margin on golf and food and beverage right now. How does that work? You take money in, you spend money, you run the operation, and at the end it comes through as a subsidy for the homeowners. POA operation, $1,257,586. That's Jennifer's office and all the stuff we run through it. We run a lot more stuff through Jennifer's office than they do at the border of Mexico, I think. But that's the POA operations. Capital projects would be $1,121,900. Harbor Club operations, we're budgeting $835,689. Community maintenance, mowing, flowers, flower beds, and everything else that Will and his crew do for us, $571,624. Golf, cost of goods sold. I have no idea how it gets out here in the statements, but that's where it is. It's $230,945. Capital lease, which is the mowers, the golf carts, those things. Annual commitment, $167,948. And again, your emergency fund's $137,000. So, that's where it comes from, that's where it goes. How big a check did each of us get to write this year? Let's talk about it. First column of numbers is your 2025-2026 situation. Your 2025-2026 uniform charge was $1,595. There was a $200 deferred emergency contingency. So we collected $1,395. A little bit different timing. We had an emergency assessment for legal fees of $50. So the total paid by you was $1,445. By me too. The board will introduce a resolution to increase our uniform charge by 2.7% this year and by the cost of living index increase every year consecutive to that, with a cap of 5%. Everybody knows what to budget for now. The dues payers know what to budget for, and so do the folks who are planning to use those dues. So that $1,595 escalated 2.7% becomes $1,638. I've been talking about an emergency fund. We're going to generate that emergency fund by giving a $150 allowance where we did $200 last year. You can think of it as $50 extra. You can think of it as $50 less, but that's the way it comes out. Total paid by you will be $1,488. Total paid by me will be $1,488. Total increase versus last year's $43. I think we're on the right track. There's a big presentation on front steps, which is a narrative and a bunch of spreadsheets. And you're welcome to go through them. They've got a lot more detail in them than this does. But if I went through that much level of detail, we'd have to order pizza, not the budget. So, I appreciate the privilege of your time tonight. and let's move this community forward together. Dan, you're right.
Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Lee did a pretty good job of talking through a lot of our budget already, so that eases into this conversation. We'll jump into a little bit more detail on each of the different areas. Just a high level how we approach the budget. It's broken down into four different categories. So we budget the POA, the community landscaping, or the Harbor Club here, and then the golf course operations. And then within the golf course operations, we break that out between golf operations and the restaurant food and beverage operations. And so we'll dive into those here. The entire team was, on-site team was involved in putting the budget together. So Jennifer, Amanda, Will, Chris, Michelle, all the supporting staff here were highly involved in putting together the budgets for their respective areas. So starting with the POA budget, again, so this is based off of $1,438 billed for 2,785 lots, and we're budgeting at a 98% collection rate. The current year collection rate, we're over 99%, so we feel very comfortable in the amount that we have budgeted for next year. So that's where the $3,924,733 comes from. When we look at the POA non-dues revenue, part of that is from Hosted America Fiber, which we're expecting that to grow this year, next year. So far this year, through December, we had collected just over 10,000. We plan to do a marketing push next year that could help move that along, and we're budgeting just over $36,000 for that. Rental income, right now we did not factor in any increases in rent for any of the facilities. That could be an opportunity if we decide to increase that, or the board decides to increase that. Also, the POA building, the offices that we moved out of, there is maybe a potential opportunity to lease that space as well. The marina income is also expected to go up this year, since all the renovations have been completed, and we're budgeting at $90,000 in marina income in next year's budget. The remaining balance of the 398 is made up of traffic violations, land development, administrative fees for sold properties, realized collection of storage fees, lot sales, lot mowing, fines, and late fees, and maybe a few other miscellaneous areas. So that's what makes up $398,423. When we look at the expenses, we're not really changing anything significant on the expense side of things. Most of them were increased by about 3%, with the exception being water, where we increased that 10% year over year. We also, one change on the labor side, we are budgeting to hire a part-time coordinator for events at the Harbor Club. That person may also be able to handle some marketing responsibilities in other areas as well. So in total, that takes the net revenues with the POA dues collected, the emergency contingency, and the non-dues revenue to $4,461,014, and the total expenses just over $1.257 million. The community maintenance budget, so the total expenses here is $571,624, which is pretty close to in line with what we're forecasting to spend for this year. That breakdown, you can see the bulk of that is in payroll. Will and the excellent team that he has assembled in order to complete the maintenance within the community. Our focus is going to be keeping entrances, amenities, and buildings tidy, identifying and repairing safety hazards, and keeping buildings and amenities functioning properly. For the landscaping, working on leveling and improving turf coverage around entrances. This will improve the quality of cut and reduce wear and tear on our mowers and provide better looking turf. We are factoring in compensation increases for all of the existing staff as they go through annual review process. All labor for the, I'll go a little bit in detail on this. The way that the staff that Will has assembled will also do the maintenance for the Harbor Club here. So the way that this is budgeted for is it's all done through the community maintenance budget, and then a percentage is allocated towards the Harbor Club based off of what we anticipate for the labor use from that team. So right now we're budgeting for 20% next year. That's something that obviously as we get into the season and the use of this facility, that'll be adjusted based off of what the actual use of the facility is. But that's how we approach the budgeting for the labor piece. And then ultimately, we want to make sure we're making repairs and freshening paint as needed to the current buildings and all the structures owned by the Fhpoa. The Harbor Club budget. So you can see the largest expense here is the debt service. So of the $835,000 expense for the Harbor Club, just over $712,000 is for debt service, and then also the payroll is the next largest area. When you look at the debt service and operating costs for the building, it's about a $330,000 additional cost that we're budgeting for next year compared to what is being spent this year. Most of that is debt service, but then also the operating costs as the building comes online, and then the additional insurance costs for it as well. We are building in a new building technician and custodian position, and the majority of their time will be spent in the Harbor Club here, maintaining and keeping the facility up to the level that everybody expects it. Ultimately, the bathrooms need to be cleaned and sanitized daily. Floors, walls, windows cleaned regularly, which more than doubles what the current janitorial needs have been for the facility. We'll also be adding landscaping around the areas that will be hard to maintain turf. So we'll just put in landscaping to reduce the time that it takes from a labor perspective. We're also planning to add landscape lighting to help improve safety for those using the property at night. The building will also add more handwork to the landscaping than compared to prior years. A lot of sidewalk edging and small turf areas between the sidewalks that require push mowing, so it's just more labor intensive to maintain the area. And then also we need to budget for fertilizers, pre-emergence, growth regulators, and herbicides needed to keep the landscaping and the turf looking the way that everybody expects. So we're going to start with just talking about the golf club budget combined, and then we'll jump in and break it out between golf operations and food and beverage. So as you can see, total revenue for the golf and restaurant is just over $1,504,000. The cost of sales for both golf and food and beverage of just under $231,000. So total gross income of $1.273 million. And then you can look at the operating expenses, and obviously payroll being the largest expense at just over $755,000, and total expenses totaling $1.642 million. When we look at the revenue and how that's broken down, the golf revenue, just over $909,000. Of that, $297,445 is membership dues, $478,100 is green fees and card fees. Just over $30,000 in range revenue, and merchandise revenue of $77,000. The total golf and labor expenses is just over $1.217 million, and so the operating income for the golf operation is a subsidy of just over $358,000. When we look at the food and beverage area, the food and non-alcoholic beverage revenue is budgeted at just over $374,000, and alcohol just under $209,000. Total F&B labor and expenses is $424,698. You also have to factor cost of sales in there, and that's what takes the F&B operating income to a loss of just under $11,000 for the year. So digging a little bit deeper into the golf operations, you can see that chart in the bottom shows what the golf revenue is going back to the last 5 years. The $508,550 that we're budgeting for green fees, cart fees, and range revenue next year is a 14% increase over what we're forecasting for this year. So how are we going to do this? And we'll jump into a little bit more detail on the following slides, but continuing to drive APR, the average rate, by increasing our rates during peak demand times, specifically on the weekends. And we also would recommend implementing dynamic pricing, which would adjust the pricing based off of utilization. So the highest demand times, the rates would increase, similar to if you're purchasing a plane ticket. If the demand is high, the cost of the ticket increases. From a membership perspective, we're building in we're factoring in a net gain of 17 memberships. This will require adding between 20 and 25 to account for the natural attrition that happens throughout the year. We are not planning to increase the full golf membership fees, but are planning an 8% increase for weekday and weekend memberships. So on the marketing side of things, we did build in money to increase the digital advertising, so paid social campaigns, really targeted campaigns to key demographics in the area. Those of you that do not have the course app downloaded, we would encourage you to do so. Currently, there's 257 people that have downloaded that app. That's a great tool for us. About 50% of those individuals have push notifications turned on, so we can communicate and push out specials or promotions or communications to them. Our goal is to double that, the number of app users next year. We want to also increase our Facebook followers by 20%. Currently, we have just over 1,200 Facebook followers. Want to continue to stay active. That's a great tool to communicate with residents and people in the area. And same with Instagram, which is smaller right now. We've got less than 100 followers on Instagram. We want to continue to push that and double that as well. Another key aspect is increasing participation in events, specifically member events. And we plan to do this by engaging the Golf Advisory Committee to gain ideas and feedback, and then make sure that we're communicating details at least 45 days in advance. If you went to the website right now, you can see that a lot of the events are posted up there, and we want to make sure everybody has the information and can register for the events. We feel like we made strides on that this year in providing a better experience, and just want to continue that next year. Also planning to increase the reciprocal rate from $36 to $40 to match what our competitors are doing in the area, and then also increasing the outing fees from $36 to $40, no, up to $40. Apology, up to $36. Sorry. Except for some of the charity events, which we do at a little bit lower cost. And then ultimately, golf rounds and golf revenue is going to be driven by the conditions on the golf course. And so we want to make sure that we're continuing to provide resources to Chris, who does a wonderful team. Chris and his team do a great job, and continuing to make improvements to the golf course. Going a little bit in more detail on our pricing strategy. I know this is just a bunch of numbers up on the screen and hard to read. This will be made available, but what the chart in the center is a heat map showing the amount of rounds that we play each day of the week by time of day. And so what we see is the darker green areas are where we have high demand or high play, which we see the highest play on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And we saw a really strong increase in public play year over year, and feel that we have an opportunity to increase rates during that time. That may be a good area to start with implementing dynamic pricing, so that we can segment that to only have dynamic pricing on weekday or weekend mornings, and then that'll drive the rate up based off of how both the T-sheet is and what the demand is. Next slide. And then from an expense side of things, the staffing in the golf operations is comprised of the club manager, golf professional, which hasn't been filled this year, but we're looking forward to filling that next year, pro shop attendants and seasonal card attendants. No major changes in our expense model. We're factoring in 2 to 3% increases based on inflation and vendor price increases. Our marketing expenses include increasing our digital advertising, which I talked about earlier, and also building in funds for collateral printing, websites, online reputation management, graphic design, and our true marketing support. Credit card processing fees, we budget this as we budget the expense as 3% of revenue. We are collecting service charges on those credit card transactions when people are paying, and we're budgeting to offset that by collecting 2% of revenue in service fees. So the net impact on that is an expense of $15,284. The maintenance labor is up about 9.5% compared to the fiscal year 26 budget. That number is a little bit skewed because we shifted how we are allocating some of the labor burden. So the benefits and payroll taxes, which may have fallen under general and administrative expenses in the past, are now allocated to each of the departments. So there are no general and administrative expenses. So that is causing the increase. But when you look at just direct labor, we're doing just normal pay increases for the staff year over year. Expenses, including the equipment leases, are up 14% over the current year budget, which equates to approximately $27,500. A lot of this is in repairs and maintenance in our aging equipment. We've got a fleet that's coming close to the end of its term. So the older the equipment gets, the more repairs that it needs, and then everything is getting continues to get more expensive, from fertilizers, chemicals, and other supplies to maintain the course. So that covers golf operations. And jumping into food and beverage operations, again, that chart on the bottom shows the revenue over the last 5 years. So we're budgeting for the food and alcohol revenue just over $583,000, which is a 14% increase. You could say that is aggressive growth on the food and beverage side, but if you look back a couple of years and where it was in 22, 23, 23, 24, restaurant revenue at that time was over $600,000. Amanda and the team have done a really good job this year of elevating the experience and creating consistency, and we want to build off that next year and continue to grow the revenue. When we look at hours of operation, you can see what we're planning for now, but hours of operation, we plan to adjust those seasonally to maximize revenue and manage labor and expenses. So we're not proposing that we just reduce the hours of operation or add hours of operation. That's going to be based off of when we're able to generate the most revenue. So if we see that there's areas, even after our marketing initiatives and trying to push revenue, that doesn't make sense to stay open until 9 o'clock because the revenue that last hour is very low, we may adjust those hours of operation because our focus is on getting the restaurant to profitability. We also plan to refresh lunch menus at least twice a year with regular smaller modifications based off of season and product pricing. We do see some volatility and changes in food costs, so we want to be able to adjust to that. We'll continue with trivia every other Wednesday night, planning to increase fish fry pricing by $1, prime rib Saturday and rib night on the opposite Saturday, and then music to continue on Thursday nights. We may adjust that timing based off of seasonality during the slower times of year, and then we'll continue to have events supporting the holidays each month. On the expense side of things, we're budgeting a blended cost of goods sold of 31%. That is in line or even slightly below industry average when you look at golf club. So again, that's going to be based off of achieving proper portion control, make sure we're building the menu appropriately and rotating the menu and setting the menu prices accordingly. The staff is comprised of a chef, front of house manager, line cooks, servers, and bartenders, which is consistent with the current year. We are budgeting just over 30. We look at we try to budget labor as a percentage of revenue. So right now we're just over 38% labor as a percentage of our food and beverage revenue. Industry average would be, around 40% or slightly below. I see some people shaking their head no, but when I say industry average, I'm specifically talking about golf clubs. If you have a standalone restaurant, that's in a different area, that may be different model, but that's a benchmark in the golf club industry. No major changes in the expense model, again, factoring 2 to 3% increases, same strategy on the marketing side, and then same thing with credit card processing fees. So appreciate the time to go through that, and then I'll turn it back over to the board. We'll be around to answer any questions.
While you're setting up to handle questions and answers, I've got just a few, thank you, Dan. I've got just a few things I want to add, sort of in conclusion and wrap up. What you heard tonight was a summary of a summary of a summary of a summary. Maybe I need one more summary, I don't know. There's a huge amount of detail went into this. Is it all perfect? No. You know that. But it shows us the way. If you want to know more detail, I'll refer you to Wayne's reserve study, which we're going to put out on front steps. I encourage you to print the big version of it, not the executive summary. You can keep it on your nightstand when you can't go to sleep at night, because it is that detailed, right? But there are different levels of detail available to you. We will put the reserve study out. The full budgets and the narratives that go with them, if you haven't picked those up on front steps, we deliberately wrote some pretty detailed narratives to share a lot of the assumptions that went into this, a lot of the planning that went into it, and you can begin to see the way things are starting to mature. Please, if you haven't read those, go through them if you're interested. If you're going to send me a question that says, how many paper clips did Jennifer buy last year? I'm going to refer you to another spreadsheet, which will just more vising. I think we can break this presentation down by speakers and publish it on the front steps. The way Jennifer's put it together, I promise you it's going to be too big a file to go on there. Would you like to see it broken down and published, or are the documents we've put out sufficient? Break it down and publish it? Yes, no, raise your hand.
Printable.
Hmm?
The whole thing.
Okay. And maybe we can get the big operations spreadsheets punched out. I just don't know, but I promise you I'll try. Don, you want to have a question, Q&A?
Yeah, one of those It's all.
I think the way we're gonna handle the question and answers tonight on the budget is to bring in Wayne Johnson first. If you have questions about his portion of it, go ahead and ask your questions. We'll then bring up Dan Zimmer and let him answer questions. And then we'll bring up Lee to answer any other questions on the budget.
Any questions for me?
Never gonna let that down.
Question regarding the reserve shortfall.
Where does that number come from? Does it come from your accounting firm? Does it come from the rules and regulations of the POA? Or is it like state mandated? Where does that 5 million come from?
The 10 million, is that what you're asking? It's a combination of all of those things that you said, basically. The site inspection, we develop a list of all the components that the association is responsible for, which if my memory's right, it was around 300 different components that the association and by the bylaws is responsible for maintaining. So we do a site inspection, come out and look at all of them, assess their current remaining useful life, and put a dollar value on them, and go out 30 years and look at where each one of them is going to fail and when it needs to be replaced. And then all those calculations go in together to come up with, if you were 100% funded right this minute, meaning if you could replace anything that was deteriorated up to this point, then you would have right at $10 million in your reserve fund. Now, I'm not going to tell you that hardly any associations have that. If you're in the 30 to 70% funded range, you're probably doing just fine, and that's kind of a threshold that you should shoot for, maybe 50%. But you guys operate a little different, and I completely understand that. And I'll just give you the numbers the way we do it, the way we're supposed to do it based on CAI and industry standards. Does that answer your question?
So the number comes from your company?
Yes. Yes.
There's no
Comes from additional.
POA or state regulations?
Oh yeah, there's input both ways. If I put down that the asphalt's gonna cost $40 a square yard to patch and repair, and you've got a bid from a reputable person that you know will do it for 30, I wanna change it and put $30 in. So anything like that, but unless you've got a quote or an estimate, I'm gonna be the expert first, but then if there's a quote, I'm gonna go with it. Sorry for that long answer.
Gosh, we need to have them identify themselves.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wayne. Dan, come up and if anybody has any questions for Dan Zimmer, please.
Don asks people to identify themselves when they stand up.
When they speak. That's the question.
If you identify yourself when you stand up, please.
I acknowledge the fact that I do not see very well, but I thought I saw about the construction road that we have. Is that the construction road that's on Caracara? There was something about the construction.
Yeah.
Can I see that?
Yeah, whizzes.
Can I see that?
She needs to identify herself.
Tell us who you are, please.
And my question is.
No, tell us who you are, please.
My name is Doreen Willock.
Thank you,
And I
Doreen.
live on Willis Passage.
The construction road is a placeholder for future board action to estimate funds. It is not approved by the board yet. It's in a future year. It's not part of 2026.
My question is there a plan for that to remain a road, or is that going to go back to being a lot?
I'm going to try it maybe a little differently. It is not a plan yet. Okay?
That's, okay, well, that's the answer, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the answer I'm looking for.
It anticipates having money in place in case the board makes a future decision.
Yeah.
It's the next metal front that they identify.
Al Shower, Murfield Place. On your capital
through the same gate.
plan, line, let me go to my notes,
The fire logic.
line 20. How come Columbus Court is listed twice and Columbus Court is 140 yards long as a $500,000, and then it's listed again in a group with Kia Court? Was that an oversight, or is there some plan in that?
That's an oversight. We'll pick up the roads as they're the worst and the readiest.
Since it was twice though, I didn't know.
No, it's an oversight. We're sorry. Okay? I lost, there's another attendee in here that will tell you we lost $500,000 the first pass through. So, Joe?
Hi, Wally Melanson, Cara. Lee had published a statement, not financial, but a statement in October stating that at that point, he estimated that there was a $248K loss on the golf course. Did I hear you correctly, sir, and said that you anticipated 358 for year end for the golf course?
Yeah, and I'm not sure what you were, if that was a year-to-date loss, like the year-to-date financials at that time.
At what they published?
Yeah,
Well, obviously, it would have been probably a 9:30 close.
right, yeah, so
It should have been a year-to-date, you're correct.
yeah, so we're budgeting next year, let me just make sure I have it correct, I think it's $368,000 loss, between the two golf, and food and beverage operation, which will be, improved over what the year-end number will be this year.
Okay, well, that's kind of problematic since you can't separate the golf course from the restaurant. I'll ask that question in a second.
Oh, it's separated,
That means for the
$358,000 for golf
year,
and $10,000 for
We're going
food.
to have a $110,000 loss.
Say that again?
If Lee's calculation of 248 at 6 months is even in the ballpark, and you're predicting 358 by year end in February, you're telling me that we only have a $110,000 loss for the last 6 months of the year?
Yeah, I think we're talking about two separate things. We're talking, well, yes, because we're talking about the budget for next year. Of 360.
What do you anticipate the loss will be for this fiscal year for the golf course?
I think it will end up, just over $400,000.
$400,000. And that would make the debt service on this building, we'd only have to come up with 314 then. Okay. What I'm trying to get at is, number one, it's very hard to figure out what's going on with the golf course, the restaurant, and the marinas in your financials that you produce. Do you have the capability to separate out a sub P&L for those three entities?
Yes, which I believe it's provided now. So yes, we can provide clarity on that.
Okay, so can you state now that you'll be able to do that for our year end?
I can state that next year's budget will certainly.
Not the budget, sir. The year end, the actual results of how you did as a management company for these entities.
This is a question.
Yes, we can break out food and beverage and golf.
Because these people, the only way they can figure out what they're spending the majority of their money on is by a separate P&L that will flow into the consolidated. Okay?
You got a list of questions?
That's about the only thing I have to say. The other comment is, if we don't make the payments on this building, my understanding is Kathleen, Jennifer, the rest of the Truist employees will be reporting to Truist Bank. If we have a Cat 5 here, like Lee has been through, in Florida, stick and frame construction here, probably half of it will be gone. This place will go bankrupt. Whatever the people are left, you're gonna be with nothing. And if I'm still here, that'll leave me too.
Is there a question here?
This is a comment. I don't care if you don't like comments or not. I think
Is there
a
a
lot of
question and
these
answer?
folks need to understand the difference between a Cat 1 Florence
This is a question and answer. It's
and a
not-
Cat 5.
Okay.
And what it will do to this community. I give you a reference point. 1992, Hurricane Andrew, homestead. I was there 2 days after. Nothing can describe it other than those old pictures of Hiroshima in World War II.
It's not California.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Need Bob on the microphone.
Anybody else got any questions for you?
Bill, keep me out of trouble here. Bill Dreschler. I'm informed, for what it's worth, yes, it's stick and frame, but it's pretty stout. It's designed for Cat 5 winds. This building, yes, sir.
Yep.
Which is why it's certified, Bill, keep me out of trouble, why it's certified for post-storm refuge.
Our wind zone here, this location, 120. It should be designed for 120 miles an hour wind speed. We designed this building for 150.
Which is Cat 5.
Right.
Yep. Yep. And it can be done with sticks and frames.
That was not the point. The point is, your individual homes
Done.
are not designed.
Done.
Mine certainly isn't.
Right.
If your
It's
home
Eddie's
is
time.
destroyed,
It's
you're
not
gonna
that
have
long.
property abandoned, you're gonna have no collections. All our directors that we elect, they're gonna be reporting through the bank.
I'm not gonna say it.
We default. That's
Holy
why
God,
we, it's so
Done.
right on with his reserve.
Done.
But you have to be able to look at the things we're spending our discretionary money on. The golf course, the restaurant.
Done.
the arena.
Is there a question
The arena
here?
probably
This is
only
becoming a
makes
public
money.
forum. It's not what the intent was here.
Okay.
This is a
Okay.
question and answer period.
Kathleen's got the next question.
Sharon Hinkie, Royal Pines Drive, and a beleaguered and old resident of 23 years, with 6 years on the board. So I look back and I don't want to rehash what's happened and the mistakes we've made. I worked with the board very hard when we had a 6-figure reserve study growing close, well over 300,000. So I've been upset for a long time. But my biggest concern is when we do this budget and we assign percentages of increase that sometimes sound very unrealistic. And then you plan your spending. Is that how it's done? We used to try to look at how to be in the black and not in the red. And I'm a huge supporter of our amenities, and I was a big part of the acquisition. So I'm not wanting to see any of that go away because I believe that's our living, our quality of life, and our community. But I question in the past and am concerned that yours have changed. What you've said, Lee, makes an awful lot of sense, and I feel a lot more comfort. But I still get disturbed when you assign unrealistic percentages to areas and then budget what you're gonna spend when that money is not truly available. Is that making any sense?
Not exactly. I will tell you that I can't present to you a budget that doesn't balance to zero at the end. We in fact cheated a little bit and budgeted $132 surplus. I'm gonna call that close enough. Unrealistic percentages, I don't know, because I haven't done percentages. We did the capital budget from quotes and forward-looking estimates based on the quotes. And Dan has done the operations from current status and forward projections. In general, the percentage we've used has been 2.7, which is the consumer price index increase.
Well, I wanted to hear that we had a balanced budget. I have, I know when you're creating percentages to various facilities or groups, goals for them to hit, and certainly that's important. But I've heard over the last 3 to 5 years when you say, I want to see a 22% increase to a person, and that person says it's not conceivable, it can't happen, but okay, I'll sign and I'll do the best I can. I find that assignment
and I don't know if that comes from Troon or the board or a consolidation of both of them, but when you talk about a 14% increase at the golf course and a restaurant, that's a lot. To strive for it is great, but sometimes I think it's a little bit unrealistic. And that concerns me. But while I have the microphone in my hand that I ripped from Kathleen's hand, I have to say, I've been here 23 years. We've had 2 individuals in this organization involved with the golf course and the restaurant that never carried their title as manager, but carried it in pride as a person, proud of what they were doing and our facility. One of them was Dan Argenteri, and the other one is Amanda. And I'm extremely upset that she's leaving and very concerned. We need to hire and find some miracle worker again that doesn't wear their title, but wears pride and production. That she's performed miracles, and I'm crushed for all of us that lives in her. And I wish you luck, and I pray hard that there's another Amanda there.
If I can add to that, also agree with the comments, and Amanda's done an amazing job. But one of the things she's done a great job on is building a team as well. And so the team, not just in the food and beverage operation, but the golf operations, is much, much different than what it was 12 months ago when we would have been standing up here last year. So sad to see Amanda leave. She's been gracious enough to stay engaged and will be involved until we can find the right structure and the right person to move into that role. We feel confident that we'll be able to do that and continue to build off of that with the new leader, as well as the team that's in place underneath that leader at both the restaurant and at golf operations. And yeah, I mean, I agree. Typically, 14% increase in food and beverage, that equates to $72,000 over what the current year budget is. And when you look at that compared to where the operations were 2 and 3 years ago, it's still slightly below where we were. If you didn't have those historical benchmarks to work from, as well as the progress that's been made this year, the trajectory and the team that's in place, I would be more concerned about that than we don't like presenting budgets that aren't achievable. That's doesn't do us any favors as we get into next year if we're not able to achieve those revenue numbers. Because ultimately that comes back to us, and we have to manage that. From a food and beverage perspective, I touched on it a little bit, but we manage that operation based off of percentages. So if the revenue isn't there, then the cost of goods sold will decrease. That expense will decrease. The labor number will decrease because that's based off of activity and as a percentage of revenue. So we would make those adjustments if we're not seeing if we're not achieving the revenue targets that we've laid out. But again, we feel confident about the trajectory and where we're going.
Yeah, we're done.
I'm gonna be wild, so you don't say. Well, I'm gonna say.
Let's take 2 more questions and then wrap it up.
All right, my name's Kevin Heidel, 5904 Gondolier Drive. I'll stand up. As you know, I'm the former treasurer, and I have to say, this is the first time that I believe in 10 years that Troon was required required to do the budget. It was always the responsibility of the treasurer. And from what I understand, you present the budget and they just provide a sign off. There are serious issues in this budget, okay? I read through this document and they're very, very serious issues. Number one, okay, this spreadsheet that you gave us, all right, columns don't equal. All right, under expenses, you're missing $703,000.
Which spreadsheet are you referring to? What's the
The
heading?
one that you sent out,
What's the heading?
it's the one you presented that was
Okay.
All right, budget analysis, WLS 2025, 121V4.
All right,
All right,
take a look.
all right, so you're missing $703,000. All right. So that's one thing that I believe you need to take a look at. All right, last year, I had the opportunity to do the budget last year, and we have three board members on here. When I did that budget, when I presented the budget last year, I said to the board that the budget for the golf and the restaurant, right, was way over budget, right, with targets that you could never, ever achieve, right? So, and it was close to probably 400, 500,000, something in there, all right? So, what I did is I lowered those targets, right, because it's not an accurate budget. Right? You can't put in, expectations of revenue that you're not going to get, and then expect that, well, now I can't, do the expenditures because I'm not putting in revenue. All right. So what I presented to the board last year, I reduced the budget by $250,000. All right, to take care of that budget gap.
John, is there a
This
question?
year, all right, and this is an issue. All right, this year. All right, the way the budget was handled, it was doing a comparison of the budget numbers from last year. All right, so when you take a look at that, a financial professional, all right, does not do budgets by just matching a budget one year to the budget next year. They go by actuals and they look at trends. I just received a report last night from Jennifer that brought up to date the P&L, okay, from the end of December. If you take a look at the restaurant and the golf, all right, they're short about $117,000. You run that out another 2 months, all right, you're going to be more than that, all right? So what's going to happen is that your numbers are going to be wrong, all right? What needs to be done is to take a look at your actuals and reduce the revenue stream by about $117,000. That's what needs to be done with that. One other thing that you need to take a look at is that you're raising dues $43. That generates something about $117,000 or something like that. All right. If you go from budget to budget, all right, you're $45,000 short. All right. You have 3924. It should be like 3979. That's what it should be.
We'll check the math.
All right. The second thing is they increased the budget for the golf course and the restaurant by the tune of, hold on, I tell you, I'm a spreadsheet nut, so bear with me. All right, so you're short 117,000 through December. All right, you're going to be short probably in the next two months, which is going to increase that. They increased the budget by about $52,000. All right, this is going to give you about $170,000. All right, that needs to be reduced out of that budget. All right, so that the budget is actually correct. And the reason why I'm saying this, we all know that in the contract, all right, the employees, they get bonuses for hitting certain benchmarks. You put a budget out like this, there's no way you can pay bonuses because they can never reach it in comparison to the budget. So it's very unfair to the workers because they can never achieve getting a bonus. What's the incentive to do better? All right, so my recommendation is to reduce that money. All right, and bring that down. Second thing is, in the documentation, all right, it says that there is $670,000, okay, that's unappropriated to anything. There's no way you ever do a budget where money is not appropriated. It's always appropriated. The $670,000 that he's doing, that he wants to hold out, right? Right? That money, what it is that's the balance at the end of last year that was in the bank account. All right? The way it works, and this is why you have an operating account and you have a capital account, which he wants to merge. Right? The reason why you have that, right, is because you have X amount of dollars and you control that capital through that bank account. Standard financial, any financial professional that works, okay, in finance, anywhere, any business, they separate operating from capital, everywhere. All right, and here now we want to merge it and co-mingle everything. All right, so there's $670,000 out there, right? 200,000.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Kevin, sources and uses of funds has been in use by budget, as a budget tool for years. I've had CPAs approve it.
Well, that's fine.
And don't tell me that sources and uses of funds can't be merged and can't be used, because it's perfectly legit.
It's not.
In terms of all these other details, they're out in the wind. They need to be considered in the context of what we're doing. If you will put all of that in an email and send it to me, I'll be glad to look through the points. But I cannot follow what you said. I apologize. I just
Well,
can't.
I'm gonna tell you, there's serious issues here. Very serious issues.
Heard.
All right. So anyway, on the last thing is that $670,000, the reason why it was put away into a special account is because that's your capital and you reconcile that bank account, okay, to your projects. All right. That $670,000 that he says is unallocated, that's all allocated money. That's money from the capital plan in 2024 with money that was money left over for bills not paid, right? So nothing was booked against that, right? And he's saying that it's unaccounted for. Well, you know where he's paying those bills from? The operating account, right? So now your operating account is short if you don't use that money, all right, and put some of that back in the operating account.
I'm not going to chase decimal points around the room with you.
That's not decimal points.
I'm just not going to do that.
No, he said and
The amount that I said was unallocated, there are no records on how it's allocated.
oh, yes,
If there is, send it to me because I can't find it.
This comes
Right.
up
I'm
because
gonna leave you
Tuesday
with
month
this.
agenda numbers.
right?
I think we're done here.
No.
They keep giving up agenda numbers.
Don,
This is,
will you give me the respect to let me finish?
this is.
5 minutes is up.
Yeah.
Oh, let him finish. Yeah, let him finish. All right, go on. All right. Like I said, what happened was it was allocated, all right, but the treasurer decided that he was gonna stop all projects in 2025. But all the projects weren't done because we had some done. There's a balance of about $335,000, all right, of that was allocated to projects, and I have that list, all right? One thing is there's money for roads, 80-something thousand, 95,000 in there, for culverts. And so, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm leaving you with a gift, okay?
right? I've always reconciled the capital. There's 122, out of $670,000 or 470 now, there's $122,000 that was left over from projects that either didn't get done or, it didn't cost as much. $122,000. That's cash that I didn't do anything with, kept it for an emergency. All right, so out of that $122,000, we can do that. But you're gonna have to move a good portion of that money back into the operating account because it is allocated.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
End it.
Roberta Eichelberg, Ibis Lane. From what you were saying, it looks like we have a $400,000 deficit coming again in the golf course and the restaurant?
Yeah.
How is that tolerated? I don't understand why this is let go from year to year. Excuse me? Well, I'm not explaining. Why is that allowed to go from year to year? I understand a year or two ago was $500,000. That is one hell of a lot of money for all of us to have to make up to keep that thing going. Are there benchmarks? Are there something in place to bring this to a zero balance? I come from the corporate world. If we had anything like this happen, we would have been hung up to dry. But yet it's tolerated. Every year, it's tolerated. Okay, so we're $100,000 better than last year, but we didn't. That's still $400 grand in the hole. And we still need money for our reserve fund. That would help the reserve fund definitely. I just don't see why that is tolerated and continue to fund that in a law.
And when you look at the food and beverage operation, so
No.
we're budgeting that at a $10,000 loss next year. So we're getting very close to break even on the food and beverage side. The golf operations, again, that's something that I don't think that it's a realistic expectation because that's going to need to be made up on the revenue side. So generating $500,000 in additional revenue year over year, I don't believe is a realistic expectation. And the operating expenses for the golf course and the restaurant operation are not operating costs that are out of line in order to provide the quality of golf course and the experience that what's been communicated to us is desired. So again, it's something where we've shown the progression year over year. We're continuing to push that and focus on more marketing next year and building up the revenue in order to continue to reduce that amount that the residents subsidize to have the golf course.
What you need to understand, why you're getting screwed up, is because we pay you a lot of money, true, to lose $500 million a year. That's what hurts. We pay a lot of money to you, man. And you guys we're losing money. You're sucking us dry. We're sucking chest wood.
I think we're the little fish in the big pond. And Drew has provided us a lot of big golf courses, a lot of big rock. And we're way down here because we're little. So we don't get involved in
Yeah,
that's not accurate.
That's my opinion. What I probably other people talking about.
Is there any more questions? Let's close
I
this.
think my math is right, but 400,000 divided by 2,800 homes, $148. What we're paying out of our dues, divide that by 12. That's like $20 a month.
Yeah.
And
Same
how
number.
many residents actually live on a golf course? I mean, what's that? How many residents
John.
here, many residents,
Shut it off.
are actually
Be a big one.
members of the
Kill it.
golf course?
It's time to stop.
Golf course, it
This is
costs
not
$500,000
helping.
to keep a minority playing golf. I don't have a dog. You gotta get rid of
Explain the
dog
numbers when he did the numbers.
Golf park, the dog park. I don't have a dog. Why should I pay? I don't know who. Why should I pay for a marina?
Don, get control of this, please.
Okay, thank you all. we're gonna wrap this up tonight. And appreciate you all coming. And if you have any questions that, bunch of questions, email them to Lee and he'll try to get back to you on those. And again, appreciate you all coming. Thank you, Wayne, for coming. Thank you, Dan, for coming. Amanda, we will miss you. Thank you.
Good night.